How's it going, guys? Randall aka Shizakats here on the Tressa's Collectibles channel, and today I'm going to be teaching you guys about the Goats Ainz build for Nazarick Volume 2. This is a deck that has done very well in the competitive environment over the most recent spring season in Japan, and looks to do the same in the Western environment for the upcoming BCS season. This deck has a very unique high-risk, high-reward playstyle that demands a strong sense of game flow and a good understanding of the metagame and the potential contents of your opponent's decks. Personally, I think this is one of the hardest decks that I've ever played, so if you think you're up to the challenge, give this deck a try. Let's start by taking a look at the defining pieces of this deck, the Goats package that this build is named after. First up, we have the Goats event itself. This event can be played at up to 5 copies per deck instead of the normal 4, a flavor reference to the 5 goats that Ainz spawns in to decimate the enemy army. It requires an Ainz on stage to play, and salvages a character from your waiting room while simultaneously giving one of your characters a 1k buff. It has another effect that works while it's in memory, but we'll come back to that in a bit. Next, let's take a look at the big man himself, the Ainz level 3. This level 3 only has one ability, which is the Climax combo with Goldbar. The combo always heals 1 damage, and then branches into one of 3 options. The first option is getting up to 5 copies of the 1/1 Goats event from your waiting room and putting them under Ainz face up as markers. The second option is sending all of the markers to memory and sending an equal number of opponent's characters on the opponent's stage to the waiting room. Of course, in order to do this, you have to have the markers underneath him in the first place, so you will have to resolve the Climax combo at least 2 separate times. The third option is to burn 1 and gain 2k, which is usually only chosen once you've successfully sent your Goats events to memory by using the first 2 effects. Now let's go back to the Goats event. While it's in memory, if you have a 3/2 Ainz on stage, at the start of your Encore step, you can pay 1, discard 1 to burn 1. This ability can be resolved once per copy of the event you have in memory. So if you have all 5 copies in memory, you can pay 5 and discard 5 to burn 1 5 times, which can create some really silly endgame lethal scenarios reminiscent of the Tokyo Revengers Baji combo. Next, let's take a look at the level 0 Ainz. This has an identical effect to the level 0 Bell in Danmachi, letting you pay 1 and clock yourself to bounce both himself and one of your other characters back to your hand. This allows you to maintain a ton of card advantage throughout the early and mid game. The other effect of this Ainz allows you to early play the level 3 from your hand by paying 1, sacrificing the level 0, and discarding a card. Obviously, this is very resource intensive, as you're losing 2 cards without gaining any in return, since the level 3 Ainz has to already be in your hand to begin with. But with our next supporting card, we're going to make sure that our level 3 Ainz can stick around on the board and get a lot of value, despite going -2 to put him into play. The 1/1 Ainz is a level assist that also reduces the cost of your Goats events in hand from 1 stock to 0, similar to how Wealth reduces the cost of the Pyonkichi event in Danmachi. Additionally, he has a Climax combo with the same Goldbar as the level 3 Ainz. When the Climax is played, choose 1 copy of your level 3 Ainz. Until the end of the turn, he gets plus 4500 power, and during the opponent's next turn, Ainz and the character across from him cannot become reversed, and he's also hexproof. This allows your Ainz to safely make it to the following turn without fear of getting defeated in battle, bounce back to the hand, shrunk, or even anti-change bomb. He can still, however, be anti-change countered, since the hexproof doesn't start until the turn passes to your opponent, so you will want to watch out for that. While not a direct piece of the Ainz package, the Shalltear Vampire Brides package is an extremely important part of the Goats deck, and a huge contributor to the deck's high-risk, high-reward playstyle. It's a powerful enough package that the Shalltear was placed on the restriction list alongside level 3 Ainz for the Japanese version of Overlord. Let's take a look at what she does. When your other character's battle opponent is reversed, you can give a character 1500 power for the turn. This is a really powerful effect that can potentially allow you to beat over your opponent's entire level 1 board with proper attack sequencing. However, the effect that we really care about is this Act ability. It can be used up to 3 times per turn with the cost of clocking a Vampire Bride from your waiting room, and the effect is simply draw a card. Having the ability to simply hit yourself a bunch of times to draw more cards gives the deck a very Blood Knight-esque playstyle, which is very appropriate given that Shalltear is essentially one herself. This Act ability combos really nicely with the Ainz level 3 in multiple ways. First of all, filling up your hand with cards makes it much easier to early play 1 or even 2 copies of the level 3 Ainz using the ability of your level 0. Additionally, the extra draws let you dig further into your deck for more Goldbar climaxes so that you can use Ainz's Climax combo again and again. The fact that Ainz Combo heals is also synergistic with this package, since the combo will heal the Vampire Brides back into your waiting room so that you can send them to clock again later to draw even more cards. Finally, when you're ready to go for an all-out finish, you can clock yourself as many times as needed to get the necessary hand size to discard for a bunch of Goats burn 1s. The Vampire Bride itself is a level 0 reverser with an act ability that doesn't see too much use. You can send her from stage to waiting room to buff one of your characters by 2500 until end of turn. This can be useful in matchups where your Shalltear combo might struggle to get a reverse, allowing you to convert the -1 from sacrificing the Vampire Bride into a +2 from the Shalltear combo. Speaking of the Shalltear combo, let's take a look at that next. She has 4k base power and gets +2k on your turn, and her Climax combo with Adore Climax is another contributor to the high risk, high reward style. At the end of her attack, if the character across from her is reversed, or there is no character across from her, and you have 2 or more other traded characters, you can salvage a character from your waiting room, and you also have the option to time machine her. This means that each copy of Shalltear can be a +2 at the downside of opening your lane to potentially take more damage from your opponent's next turn of attacks. With help from the Vampire Bride Shalltear's 1500 buff, as well as the 1k buff you get from playing a Goats event, getting a reverse with this combo should be usually pretty manageable. Also, one last thing that you will want to watch out for is the fact that Shalltear needs 2 or more other characters in order to resolve her combo. If you time machine multiple copies of the Shalltear, then the final copy might not be able to resolve if you don't have 2 cards in your back row. Alright, now let's take a look at the rest of the deck. Let's start with the 2 copies of the level 0 Ainz, a new RR from the second set. He has on-play drop search, in addition to a plussing ability when he gets reversed. By clocking the top card of your deck, look at up to 2 cards from the top of your deck, add up to 1 level 1 or lower character, or an event of any level to your hand, and then send the rest to waiting room. There are 17 misses in the deck between the level 2s, 3s, and climaxes, so it's usually able to secure you a new card. Being able to add the Goats event is also really nice, as that can be converted into another card later on by playing the event. 4 copies of the Aura Fukujiros are also great for securing level 1 pieces, while simultaneously speeding through your deck. She also gains 1500 power on play, making her our best level 0 attacker. Our brainstorm of choice in this build is the level 0 Shalltear Search Brainstorm, but there are other viable options, such as the set 1 Shalltear Salvage Brainstorm, or the Shizu Top Check 3 Brainstorm. The Shalltear Search Brainstorm is a pay 1 rest 2 Brainstorm 5, letting her go through more cards in the deck than your usual Brainstorm. Additionally, her secondary effect activates at the start of the Climax phase if you have another Shalltear in play. Look at the top card of your deck and either leave it there or send it to waiting room. This is important for making sure your first trigger of any given turn isn't an important card like a Door Climax or Goats event that might get stuck in your stock, but it can also be used as a flexible mill 1 to control your deck size precisely. Our Climax swap of choice is the Demiurge from set 2. Apart from his Climax swap ability, he also has optional on-play mill 3, adding even more deck speed to our deck. Having all of this deck speed through cards like the Aura, Shalltear Brainstorm, and this Demiurge is very important for games where you're forced to go through your second deck rotation to set up Goats, but we'll get to that later on in the video. Skipping all the way to the level 2s, we have the 2-1 Yuri, a very strong card that offers both a big body on board, as well as amazing utility. When placed on stage from hand while you have 2 or more other traded characters, you may draw 2 cards, and if you do, discard 2 cards. Note that you cannot choose to only draw 1 card, you must either draw 2 or none at all. Additionally, when she's placed on stage from hand while you have 4 or more other characters, she also refunds a stock from waiting room, making her effectively a 2-0, while also giving you the opportunity to pay an important card out of stock and replace it with something significantly less important. Finally, her continuous ability gives her an additional 6k while you have a full board, making her a very respectable 10k power and 11k if she's in front of an Ainz level assist. This card is another way to secure gold bars throughout the mid and late game to repeatedly loop your Ainz combo. By running 3 copies, it's not unlikely that we'll be able to resolve more than 1 copy within a single game, giving us lots of draw power across multiple turns. We also run a 1 of rest counter Aura. This can be either the old box topper from the first set, or the new box topper from set 2. They're the exact same card aside from the name. This serves as a safety net in especially lethal matchups, such as Gura or Tokyo Revengers, where you might want to invest your resources into defense rather than offense. Some players run 2 copies just so that it doesn't get lost in stock, but we're just running 1 in our list. The final card on the list is the 1 of Mare. He has a Climax combo which we do not use since we're just using him for his on-play ability. While he can be a healer in a pinch, we mainly want to utilize his other mode, which is a half Fumio, forcing the opponent to shuffle their entire waiting room into the deck -1 Climax, which is a very powerful anti-compression effect that's extremely useful when going for a lethal finish. The way this deck is played is very far from straightforward. At every level of the game, there are a lot of decisions to be made based on factors like your current damage and deck state, as well as what your opponent is playing and what options they might have available. Starting with the level 0 game and the mulligan, your best level 0 is definitely the Ainz, as he allows you to maintain a lot of cards in the early game by bouncing them back to your hand. That being said, you will want to watch out against decks that can -500 power and blow him up, such as Tensura or opposing Nazarick decks. On the other hand, Vampire Brides are usually the least valuable level 0s, but they can have good value in matchups like Tensura, where they can be used to eliminate pesky Milim Chasers in a pinch. Usually, we just want the Vampire Brides in our waiting room so that we can clock them with the Shalltear Lv1 when needed. Color priority in this deck is red first for the Shalltear Climax combo and Vampire Brides Shalltear, followed by green for everything else, such as the Ainz Lv1 assist or the Goats event. At level 1, Shalltear combo is obviously going to be the main piece of the plan. With help from her combo, you want to be securing a level 0 Ainz, level 1 support, and level 3 Ainz if you don't already have all of them. After that, consider grabbing cards like the Demiurge Climax Swap and the Yuri level 2 that can help you secure more Goldbar Climaxes on future turns. While the Climax combo is the main attraction, you also want to take into consideration the Vampire Brides Shalltear, especially in low roll game states where you don't have your door for the Shalltear combo, or you might not have as many copies of the level 1 combo as you want in your hand. Do you clock yourself for a chance of drawing door, or maybe you want to try to draw into a Shalltear combo or a Goats event that can fetch you one? You also have to be wary about how much damage you're currently at, how much you can afford to hit yourself, and what you expect your opponent's upcoming damage potential to be on their next turn. Ideally, you're hitting level 2 on your first deck rotation, usually around like turn 4. Usually with other decks, you want to refresh before hitting level 2 in order to save clock compression. But in this case, you want to be able to develop a level 3 Ainz at a point in the game where you will most easily have all of your Goats events in waiting room. If you are not yet at level 2, you can use Shalltear's Act ability to boost yourself there while drawing a bunch of extra cards in the process. However, sometimes you just won't be ready to start using your Ainz combo for whatever reason. You might be too far away to clock yourself enough times to go to level 2 with Shalltear, or you just don't have a Goldbar Climax ready to go to use the combo. In these cases, you would want to avoid going to level 2 in your first deck if you can, and instead try again in your second deck, using cards like your Aura Fukujiro, Shalltear Brainstorm, and Demiurge Climax Swap to quickly mill through your second deck rotation to get multiple Goats events into the waiting room to utilize with your Ainz. With the first instance of the Ainz Climax combo, you will obviously want to be markering the Goats to set up for the second instance of combo, where you will send the Goats to memory and blow up your opponent's board. The Ainz 1/1 will protect the level 3, as we mentioned before, which in turn also prevents the Goats from being removed from underneath him. However, you have to give immense respect to anti-change counters, as they can ruin your entire game in just one move. Keep an eye out for anti-change counters in your opponent's triggers, pay attention to see if they search for it, and side attack if you must. While most anti-change counters are level 2, you need to be especially wary of decks that can play level 1 anti-change counters, such as Attack on Titan or Data Live. When positioning your Ainz level assist, you don't actually need to put him behind the Ainz level 3. Since Ainz can't be reversed during the opponent's turn, he doesn't actually need the power on defense, so you'd usually rather give the assist to the other two lanes instead. Putting the assist behind a card like 2/1 Yuri results in a pretty powerful lane at 11k power, assuming you have a full board. An exception to this rule is when you're in a matchup where the opponent can reach extremely high defensive numbers with counters, such as Tensura, in which case you will want to put the Ainz assist behind the level 3 Ainz that he gives the buffs to. Once you get your second Climax combo and send the Goats to memory, all subsequent instances of Ainz combo will be burn 1s. In an ideal world, you will resolve your first Ainz combo at low level 2, your second Ainz combo at high level 2, and then you hit level 3, fill your front row with even more Ainz, and start going crazy with multiple burn 1s. A maximum damage turn with this deck would be triple Ainz with 5 Goats, which is 3 attacks and 8 burn 1s, which I shouldn't have to explain is a ton of lethal potential. And that's going to wrap it up for our deck profile on Goats Nazarick. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and be sure to stay tuned to the channel for some of our upcoming gameplay with this deck. we're going to be pitting it against some of the toughest matchups so you can see what kinds of decks and strategies you may want to employ to combat this deck. So be sure to give those a watch. Until next time, this has been Randall, aka She's a Cats, on the Tressa's Collectibles channel. See ya!